Hello, my name is Russ Milheim. I am from the Direct. I'm here to talk about A24's Civil War in another video review. Now, this movie is from filmmaker Alex Garland, who directed and wrote the piece. He also is known for his work on Ex Machina, Annihilation, Men, those kind of, uh, generally very well received films. So, can he live up to that reputation? Well, before we get to that, I just want to say make sure you subscribe if you like this content, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on some of these films as they release and see some interviews. We would really appreciate it and it would mean a lot. So just make sure to hit like and subscribe. And with that, on to Civil War. Is it worth seeing? The answer is yes. It is a really, really well done film. It follows a group of journalists, war journalists, who are kind of in the midst of this civil war taking place in America. Now, obviously, this is not based on real life events. This is a story that is obviously very relevant. It doesn't take a genius to see the divide and discourse within America and kind of wonder, man, what if this really, really just hit 11? What if things just went so sideways that we had another civil war? This movie kind of takes that concept and runs with it. And we follow this group of war journalists as they, are trying to make their way across the U.S., notably to get one final interview with the president of the United States before the rebellion, or before they finally get to DC and get to the president themselves. But honestly, one of my key gripes with the movie, which kind of keeps it from that extra level of greatness, is it leans so heavily on being vague and not answering kind of any questions regarding its premise. For example, you never know why exactly there is a civil war. You don't know any of the events that led to it, or really anything at all. Any details are left out and avoided, probably to maybe keep it from becoming too relevant, and maybe too on the nose, or whatever the case may be. It is all very vague, and that might work sometimes, but I do think that in this case, it hampered the film a little bit because it felt like the filmmakers had something else they wanted to say. They had more that they wanted to say, and then the film just never is able to do that because it's kind of stuck in that vague territory. And because of it, there is lack. This narrative does lack a little bit of a bite. Um, with that said, however, this is still very harrowing, haunting. There are a lot of really great, disturbing imagery and moments, really tense standoffs that really put you into this world, and show you the kind of the realism of, like, what this kind of scenario is like, following these journalists in the midst of covering a war zone. And that alone is really interesting and unique and fun to be an audience member and be along for the ride. Now, kind of jumping back to the vagueness, there's with the plot. I just remember that the moment the film opens and it gives you a little bit of background, it's still all within, it's still all vague. But one of the key points is that there's this alliance, the Western Forces, which is an alliance between Texas and California. Probably, I think some other states and groups as well. But the idea that Texas and California would align themselves together in such a big situation like this, just it is such a leap. It is. I kept finding myself thinking, why in the world would those two states ever be on the same page in this kind of situation? And it is something that I just kept thinking about throughout the film. And at the end, I still didn't have an answer. And so that's just another example of kind of how the vagueness hurts the film a little bit. Obviously, that was done on purpose. They wanted to kind of take these extremes and present you with how maybe this civil war could happen. Um, but for me, I feel like I wish there was a little bit more there. But when it comes to the cast of characters, I think one of the strongest elements, on top of the 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 experience of getting into these war zones and seeing these situations play out, the lead cast is really really good, and each and every one of them gives off a really well crafted performance. You have Kirsten Dunst's Lee, who is a kind of a veteran war journalist. She's been doing this a long time. She's jaded, uh, and she is kind of the main focus of the story. She is the main character, even though it's kind of an ensemble cast. She does a great job. She's right next to Kaylee Spaney's Jesse, who kind of looks up to Lee. Lee is a hero of hers. However, with Jesse, she is this, kind of like she's like a baby, right? She hasn't done this too much. She really wants to get into this war journalism, but she doesn't have the experience. So she's a little bit more upbeat and excited, about joining this journey and having this opportunity. And it's something that doesn't quite vibe with Lee. And so seeing that dynamic and that relationship develop is a key pillar of the emotional kind of structure of the whole film. Another really strong performer is Wagner Mora, who maybe fans might remember very recently from Amazon's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which he played a key role in that. But he plays Joel in this, and he also a war journalist. He's actually the one in particular that wants to be the one to go get that last interview with the president, which is kind of what incites these group of characters to get together and uh, drive across the United States. And it's worth noting that this movie is basically a road trip movie. You have the setup, and then you kind of have these characters experiencing the war torn countryside as they get into various situations, leading up to their destination, whether they get there or not. But again about Wagner, he is great in the movie. His character is similar to Jesse's in that there's an excitement and a kind of a fun kind of you know nonchalantness about everything. The war torn situation is not something that really gets to this character, at least at first, and he's been able to kind of compartmentalize all of those horrible things that you just can't really think about in the moment. And so, what's really fun about his character is kind of seeing that contrast that he has with someone like Lee, but then also eventually seeing how that might change or adapt given some of the experiences Joel goes through in these movies. Or I mean, in this movie. There's also Stephen McKinley Henderson, who plays Sammy, another veteran war journalist who isn't necessarily trying to go interview the president, but he's taking this opportunity to join this group to go across the country to kind of be more at the front lines of the war itself. Uh, he also serves as a great point as kind of like a voice of reason. He's great. Uh, if you've seen him in anything else, you will know that he lives up to the rest of his performances, and he fits perfectly. Now, there's also Nick Offerman, who is the president. Does a great job, but there is not nearly enough of him in this movie. He gets like a scene or two. He's in like the very start of the movie. I just wish that they had more of him in this. And I know given the president and his situation, it may be hard to have him interact with any of the characters, but there's plenty of ways to put propaganda on TVs or news reports or press conference, whatever the situation may be. I think that it would have been good to see more of Offerman's take on this character, on this president who has somehow caused a civil war. One thing I do want to point out um, is kind of like it's not really a gripe against the movie, but more so just warning that seeing these posters of like the Civil War with people like on the Statue of Liberty torch, that never happens. It's not that the scene doesn't exist or can't exist within the context of the movie, but there is no set piece with a battle by the Statue of Liberty. There is uh one big set piece, notably in terms of like a battle within a notable area of the United States, and that's about the biggest scale it gets. And really, the rest focuses on kind of these smaller situations that the cast of characters stumble into. And while they are smaller situations, they still feel bigger in scope because it is telling kind of a story of, America in a full blown civil war in modern day times. At the end of the day, Civil War is worth your money and time. Go see it in theaters. You see the trailer. If you see the trailer, you should have some idea if it's something that you would be interested in. It can be a hard watch with some sensitive topics. So if that is something you maybe want to shy away from, this might not be the movie for you. While I feel like it could have gone further down that path, uh, it still is what it has to offer is still very good. Uh, Great performances. It's really, impactful road trip movie across this dystopian alternate timeline America. They could have explained why in the world California and Texas ended up being on the same side of a civil war in America, and maybe leaned out of that vagueness and provided some more concrete answers and whatnot. But besides that, yeah, it's definitely worth seeing. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, and make sure to again subscribe to this channel if you want to see more. And until next time.